Russian military drones violated the airspace of Poland, a NATO member. The United States stands by our NATO allies in the face of these alarming airspace violations. The United States is consulting with Poland and our other NATO allies under Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty. And rest assured, we will defend every inch of NATO territory. This incident does not help the extraordinary efforts that the United States has undertaken in recent weeks to broker an end to the war. Since the Alaska summit between President Trump and President Putin on August 15th, Russia has intensified its bombing campaign against Ukraine, resulting in loss of life and damage to civilian infrastructure. These actions, now with the addition of violating the airspace of a U.S. ally, intentionally or otherwise, show immense disrespect for good faith U.S. efforts to bring an end to this conflict.
According to reports from the Polish Operational Command, more than a dozen unmanned aerial vehicles invaded the country's airspace, the BBC reports. It is reported that air defense forces neutralized some of them. Damage to a residential building in the Lublin province has been recorded. There were no casualties. Warsaw acknowledged that the drones could have flown in from Ukraine. At the same time, it was quick to blame Russia without presenting any evidence. Despite the obvious groundlessness of the accusations leveled against us, in the interests of a comprehensive and objective investigation of all the circumstances of the incident, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation has expressed its readiness for professional dialogue and consultations with the Ministry of Defense of Poland. The Russian Foreign Ministry, in turn, is also ready to join this work. That is, if the Polish side is really interested in reducing tensions rather than escalating them. Without waiting for official conclusions, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas hastened to make loud statements about an alleged deliberate violation of Polish airspace. She promoted her favorite thesis about investing in Europe's defense, i.e., continuing its militarization. Hysterical cries about Russia's alleged aggression are also coming from other European capitals. Under the pretext of conducting joint Russian-Belarusian exercises, Zapad 2025, the Polish authorities have already announced the closure of the border with Belarus and their intention to send up to 40,000 troops there. We would like to remind you that our strategic exercises are defensive in nature and do not pose a threat to any of our neighboring countries.
We know, and I repeat, we know that it was not a mistake. Poland, together with allied Dutch, German and Italian military forces, acted calmly, professionally and decisively, executing our right to defend territorial integrity. The drones that threatened Polish citizens and critical infrastructure were shot down preemptively. Drones are instruments of terror that have shattered homes and communities across Ukraine. 2 days ago, they tried to target Polish homes. This is one of them in a village called Wyryki in eastern Poland. A representative of the Russian Federation claimed that maybe these were not Russian drones. This is the evidence of that, including signs in Russian on the parts of the drone. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia wants to set the region on fire. Here, in this chamber, sits a permanent member of Security Council as a judge in its own case, violating the UN Charter of which this very country should serve as defender and warrantor. As for Russia, we expect to take full responsibility for this unjustified act, to fully explain the reasons for the intrusion, and to take all necessary measures so such incidents will not repeat in the future. One more important thought. You know, our Russian colleague called it possibly malfunction or mistake or coincidence. You know, once or twice it can be a coincidence or malfunction, but not 19 times, not 19 intrusions conducted within 7 hours. And not only those drones, those Russian military drones, flew through the airspace of Ukraine. They also, which your ally, President Lukashenko, admitted, were flown through Belarusian airspace.
We regret that in its request for a UN Security Council meeting, Poland accused Belarus of escalating the situation and disregarding international law. We reject any allegations against us in connection with the incidents of violation of Polish airspace by unmanned aerial vehicles on the night of September 10th. And these accusations are particularly unfounded, given that the Republic of Belarus was the first and, possibly, the only country to inform the Polish side about the approach of the drones.
We are further away from peace than we have ever been. The human toll is catastrophic. Ukraine has suffered more civilian casualties over the last months than at any time since Russia's full-scale invasion began. And just 2 days ago, Moscow decided it was not enough to keep murdering Ukrainians. Russia is spreading this conflagration in Europe, launching now its deadly drones into Poland's airspace. Let me express Ukraine's full solidarity with the Polish people. We condemn this cynical provocation, this brazen attack. Let me also be clear. We fully share the assessment of Polish authorities that this was not a technical error, it was not a lost GPS signal, or any other fairy tales that we have heard today. It was a conscious decision. It was a conscious decision of Russia to cross yet another red line and test our patience, the patience of the international community. By sending drones to Ukraine and now to Poland, our neighbor, Russia is not just mocking this council, it is spitting in your face, and yet we politely pretend that it is only raining. If this council does not act, if it fails to stop this new phase of Russia's escalation, we are not talking about regional instability any longer. We are staring into the abyss of a third world war.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.